like to call to order the June 13th meeting of the Carson City Library Board of Trustees. Could I get a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Olivas.
Present.
Trustee Lucas.
Present.
Trustee Markle. Present. Trustee Nichols. Present. A quorum is present.
All right, agenda item 2 is public comment. Any members of the public who wish to address the Library Board of Trustees may come forward and speak on the topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Library Board. Do we have anybody for public comment? Nobody on the bat phone? Nope. All right, we'll move on to action item number 3. It's approval of the minutes from the May 9th meeting. Did everybody get a chance to read those? And are there any questions, comments, possible changes?
This is Trustee Markle. I move we approve the minutes of the May 9th regular meeting. I move make that motion.
Trustee Lucas, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Move on to agenda item number 4. This is discussion of the possible action regarding the election of a chairperson for the Library Board of Trustees. Did you want to go through the staff summary there? You want me to read that, Joy? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Joy Holt, Library Director for the record. Article 3 of the library bylaws require that a chair and a vice chair be elected from the trustees at the first regular board meeting of the fiscal year for a 1-year term. In case of a vacancy, the board must elect a new officer at the next meeting. Chairperson Balderson has submitted her resignation from the board, and the Carson City Board of Supervisors has appointed Deborah Case to fill a partial term that will expire in June 2027.
Okay, so I guess we need nominations for a chairperson.
This is Trustee Lucas. I would like to nominate Trustee Nichols as chairperson, if she would be so kind as to consider accepting.
That sounds lovely.
I second that nomination.
Dun, 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 dun.
Accept. Is that what I'm supposed to say? Or? Oh,
Yep.
okay. Sorry.
Alrighty, so there's a motion to appoint Trustee Nichols as the new chairperson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Chairman, do you want to take your seat? Or take over the agenda? And then do I just turn it over to her from here? Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely.
No,
I
it's
just
fine,
drove for
like-
3 hours in traffic and construction, so.
Trustee Olivas is like,
Exactly.
praise all that is holy that you're here to take over.
So I turn over the rest of the agenda over to our new chairwoman.
Congratulations.
I'd just like to say, though, for the record, that I really appreciate everything that Chairman Balderson did for us. She will be greatly missed. I hope I do half as good a job as she did. So, onward. Okay. So, item number 4 for possible action, Library Board of Trustee business. For possible action, discussion, and possible action regarding, we're on 4B. Sorry, you think I drove for 3 hours. Okay. Oh, this is information only. Library Board of Trustee appointment, June 6, 2024. As provided by Nevada Revised Statute Chapter 379, a vacancy on the Library Board of Trustees due to expire of the term of office must be filled by appointment by a municipality's governing board for a term of 4 years. A vacancy which occurs other than by expiration of the term must be filled by appointment by the municipality's governing board for the unexpired term. On June 6, 2024, the Carson City Board of Supervisors reappointed trustee Beth Lucas for an additional 4-year term expiring June 2028. Yay! Deborah Case was appointed to serve out the remaining 3-year term vacated by Chairperson Julie Alderson Knight. And congratulations.
And thank you.
4C, for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding an annual unclassified job performance appraisal and evaluation of the library director. And I just want to say thank you for putting this together for us. I absolutely appreciate it. Staff summary: in accordance with NRS 379.0251B, the Carson City Library Board of Trustees will complete an annual job performance appraisal and evaluation of the library director on or before July 1 of each year. Deliberations regarding character, competence, and performance relevant to existing and proposed goals or objectives may be conducted. So everybody has their job performance appraisal. How do we want to do this? Do we want to read out the whole thing, or?
Have we all had a chance to read it before the meeting? Has all 4 of us read this already?
This was emailed to you a while, separately from everything else.
Is there a requirement that we read, if it's part of the material, that we read it out loud? So if we've all reviewed it, then we don't necessarily need to.
Has everybody read it, reviewed it?
I have.
Okay. Did you get a chance to see it, Joy? Okay.
I think the only thing that has to be discussed is for each section, the rating, outstanding, above, meets, and satisfactory.
Gotcha. Okay. All righty. Thank you for that. So we've all looked at it, so we can start with major responsibilities. Major responsibilities required certificates, license and registrations. And then do we think with all of the major responsibilities, has she done an outstanding, above expectations, meets expectations, or unsatisfactory job?
As trustee Olivas, I think definitely above expectations for me after I read through everything in our comments. So above expectations is where I'm at there.
Trustee Lucas, I concur with that assessment.
I agree.
Okay. Then we will do above expectations on that one. Thank you. And then we're on to objectives. And we had some comments on there. Has she done an outstanding, above expectations, meet expectations, or unsatisfactory on objectives? And does anybody have any comments?
I would say that above expectations would be appropriate, in my opinion.
Trustee Olivas, I agree with that too, and that's directly from your comments that you actually made too, that you submitted. So I think
Oh, okay.
I think they were spot on.
I agree with that. I feel that net of all 4, that above expectations is definitely the appropriate overall rating.
Okay. And then for an overall rating, and I'm just going to read this one out loud if you don't mind. Director Holt has definitely met the expectations of the job responsibilities as stated above. It is commendable given that she has not yet worked with a full staff. community feedback indicates more consideration needs to occur regarding unhoused population and the public's perception of lack of safety and fear of encounters. This is a community issue that should be at the forefront of city leadership. And I completely agree with that. So, is she outstanding, above expectations, meet expectations, or unsatisfactory?
I feel like if the section is titled overall rating and we put above expectations on the other two, then the average of that is above expectations. Mathematically, I feel like.
That was hard. That's a hard calculus to make.
Anything else would not make sense
Right.
to me.
Well, maybe because she's above expectations and everything else, she's outstanding overall. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with above expectations. I think that's
Okay.
going. Yep.
All right. Then that's what we will mark her. And thank you again, Director Holt, for being an amazing library director.
Oh, thank you. I just have one question, if I may.
Absolutely.
I was thinking about, and I went back and listened to the recording, which I try to do to make sure that I don't look very shifty-eyed in our meetings, which I really do. And I apologize to all of you for not speaking very clearly sometimes. But Trustee Markle, you had mentioned that you had looked at my self-appraisal and said you'd made a comment that you had wished to have seen some more innovation. And so I was just wondering if you had any sense of what you mean by that. I mean, not necessarily exactly, but like what sort of things, or how from your perspective, how could I be more innovative?
I agree. That's kind of tricky. And as I was writing down some of the objectives and priorities, it was like, well, how would that work? I mean, personally, I like to see the envelope pushed. And it's not that you haven't done something that's innovative. I think this workforce thing is something that's innovative and different, and it affects a portion of the population. I just like exciting things, and that's kind of relative. I mean, it's sort of subjective. What's exciting to me to see may not be exciting to the rest of the population. So it's kind of tricky and that's why I didn't put anything in here as a priority or as an objective, because it's not clear to me exactly what you might want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I read a lot of stuff about what libraries are doing, but that doesn't mean that everything that other libraries are doing is appropriate for this library and this community. And I know that you have the opportunity to go to conferences and to talk to other people and read. So, you're looking at the same stuff I am, pretty much.
Thank you for that, and for that consideration of having to find that balance between innovation and vision and what the community needs and wants. I mean, I would say that I'm a slow burn when it comes to innovation, because I really want us to deploy change that has substance and sustainability. That's so important to me, which is another reason why I'm very selective about what kind of grant money we're going to seek out and things like that, because I just don't want us to necessarily endeavor to take something on because it's the new bright shiny thing. And so I really wanted to I'm pretty thoughtful and deliberate. I think everyone probably knows that. But also, I'm always mindful of not wanting to put the staff into future shock by just the mere thought of something new and innovative. And I think it sounds really exciting, and that we're going to just, off to the races and shoot for the stars. And so I always have to be mindful of that, because without the team, working together and rowing in the same direction, it's just not going to be successful. So that's part of why I'm a slow burn when it comes to innovation. I sort of, there's this proverb that I love that says, keep your ears to the earth and your eyes to the stars. So I try to always keep that in mind, that I have to remain practical and grounded, but also keep my eyes on the horizon and what's out there in the atmosphere and the galaxy that we can deploy here in the library. So, but I appreciate your feedback on that, because it is, some people are really going to think that Libby is, innovative,
Yeah, some people might.
Yeah. And to me, that there's ebbs and flows and things that the industry just forces us into. Is that innovative? Not necessarily, but the way that we approach it might be. So
Well, and, I understand, I think we all do that, in a community library like this, it's a community library, and you always have to be mindful of what the community expects, but in my opinion, you don't always, you can push a little bit so that you can give the community what it might need above what the expectations are. And that's kind of where I am. And I'm not saying that you haven't done that, because it is, it's tricky.
yeah,
It could, because it's a risk. I mean, as soon as you push a little bit, it's a risk, because you don't want to antagonize people in the community. And, this is a conservative community, more conservative than I personally would like. But that doesn't mean it's not real.
yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that's true. It is a balance, and but it also is what makes it interesting.
Oh, yeah. And
That
challenging.
risk is interesting.
Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah.
challenging.
It's never boring.
And I think it would be helpful if maybe the board once in a while, though, too, would come up with an idea, maybe, and say, hey, I read about this, I heard about this, and what do you think about kind of bouncing ideas off of her? I think would be helpful, too. And I know that you haven't been fully staffed, so it's been really tricky to do a lot of this stuff. But I think there are things that now that I think you're staffed, mostly staffed? No?
Absolutely
Okay.
not. No.
Okay, well, then I won't come up with ideas
But that's
for you.
okay.
but-
I mean, I think that the good news is that I think we've been pretty high performing, even though we haven't been fully staffed. And so I think once you can keep that pace of high performance at a lower staffing amount, then there's real room for expansion and growth when you are fully staffed. That might be that's the optimist in me. The realist in me is like, okay, we'll see. But I do think that our staff is really stepped up to the plate, and they are maintaining a certain pace. It's a little bit exhausting right now, but it hasn't necessarily been. I think that the situation of being short-staffed has sort of left folks with no choice. We've had no choice but to expand and grow and take on new tasks that we might not have enjoyed before or known. But I think that a lot of staff members will say, if I had not had this opportunity, or if you had not come to me and said, please, can you do this? I would have never known that I would like this and be so good at it, So sometimes that, what is it, the mother of invention, the mother of, necessity is the mother of invention. I think that's kind of what has transpired here. And so I think we'll just continue to rock it and do excellent work. But it's going to be rough right now because we are exceptionally short-staffed. But we've got jobs open, and it'll all work out. 6 months from now, we're going to be solid. I have no doubt.
Me too, because every time I go in the library, I would never know that you were short-staffed.
That's an excellent compliment. Thank you. And I will pass that on to the staff, that they're like the little ducks in the water, right? Their feet are moving beneath the water, but they seem calm on the surface, and that's good.
Is any of this facility related as well as, and I know there's staff shortages, but what about facilities related? And what I mean by that, like, is the library big enough? Are the spaces as techy as you need them? those types of things. How much is that affecting your ability to innovate?
A lot, actually. We need a new building or a bigger building. Our building is 22,000 square feet. It was built, the main building was built 50 years ago. The annex, which is the double floored building, was built in 1984. So it's also equally old. And in those years, they weren't thinking about outlets. So we're very outlet poor. And you can come into the library and see, well, there's all these outlets along the outside of the shelving, and they're on the wall. So picture them, like that one right over there. So our building has plenty around the periphery, but we don't have enough room to put any seating there, to put a charging tower there, to put anything there, because if we do that, we're no longer ADA compliant. So we have just enough room in our aisles to have that 3 feet of space in between our shelves for ADA compliance. So that's the just very practical reality of the space that we're in now. We can make better use of the space that we're in, for sure. And I've got that very much in my sights. So we have that big area in the front because our circulation desk sits so far back. So I have some ideas about how we want to move that forward. I'm going to work with our circulation supervisor to make that happen. So I really want to try and maximize the space that we have, but I also do that with full acknowledgement and understanding that we just have too small of a building. Our bathrooms are very outdated. We can have them zhuzhed up as much as we want, but if we want to make actual structural changes, we also have to bring them up to code because we're grandfathered in on the code right now, and that will be the biggest expense. Like it would probably, according to facilities who I spoke with about this a few months ago, that it would be a substantial chunk of change for us to just get the bathrooms up to code. And if we want to add anything or really change anything except cosmetics, if we want to swap out the tile or put in new sinks. I was like, can we get one of those sinks that you stand around and you press the little thing and it trickles out? He's like, you don't want that. It's water everywhere. It's a mess. And I was like, well, I trust your expertise on this. So yeah, we do need, we need a different or better or more, we need a bigger building. I mean, that's just the truth of it.
When
And
was
we
the
are-
last time it was even explored about?
2014, there was
That was the knowledge center thing.
Yeah, and it made it on the ballot. My understanding, I didn't live in Nevada actually at that time, or barely back in Nevada at that time, but it made it on the ballot, and the voters voted against it. So, I think there will be some opportunities in the future, but I think that my main focus is I don't just think it. I know. My main focus for going forward from here is to absolutely capitalize and maximize on the space that we have now and continue to do incredible programming and excellent work so that we can say, not only do we just theoretically not have enough space, but we genuinely don't have enough space for all of the materials that we would like and all of the equipment that we could have if we had the space. So I feel like we have to be exceptional, and we have to have the data to support that we're exceptional in order to be heard.
And it's also tricky because, just like, other situations where, maybe a staff has been cut back or something. If you continue to do the quality of work and even raise the quality of work to a higher level than people in the community who, realistically have to vote to raise their taxes by 25 cents a year, they say, well, look at the good job they're doing. Why do they need more? Why do they need more? Because they're already doing a great job. And, it's, you can't pull back that. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't.
It's a Kafka trap, right?
Yeah.
Where like if you, in the book, The Trial by Kafka, it's like the protagonist says, "I'm not guilty," and the jury says, "Well, the fact that you say you're not guilty is proof that you're guilty." So it's this trap, right, where you're doing excellent work. So why do you need more space? Because you're already doing excellent work. I think we're going to have to. My thought is, and this could change tomorrow, but I really think that we have to show the data. We have to be able to say, okay. For example, with our Thursday morning storytime programming, we have that, we hold that in our digitorium. The digitorium's maximum capacity is, I think it's 80, and we're at 60 average.
60 little kids.
Well, that's parents and kids. Still though, it's like sometimes it's 40 kids because it's more than one kid per parent. That's a lot. And that's really pushing up against the max capacity. So if we can say those, I think if we can come with that kind of data consistently and say, this is just a practical set of figures. We have a room, it's the biggest one we have. It's got the most open space, and this is how many it can comfortably fit. Maybe more, but they'd be in there like sardines. And we can't go bigger than this. We have literally reached our full potential of this space. And I feel like that really practical data is what's going to drive people to go, oh, okay. If we say, hey, if we can keep this momentum going, and I think also if we can say we increased the numbers by this each year, right? So we're showing a steady incline, or ascension, and hopefully that will work.
Sometimes, I know I've seen this done other places where, okay, you only have 30 spaces for kids for story hour with their parents. So you have a registration system and you say, okay, we can only have 30 kids. And, sometimes that will push some people to start to say, oh, maybe we need, a bigger space. But a lot of it involves not just the data, because people sometimes glaze over at that, but the education of the community as to not just what is needed, but what is needed and what's possible. And, to have more space for story hour, for kids' activities is so important. And so to start, registering people and saying, we can only take so many because we have limited space and we have limited staff. Sometimes that, sort of wakes people up sometimes, but that doesn't mean you have to start doing that.
No. I mean, it's always in our sites, of course. We stopped doing registrations just because it was some of the feedback we got through the strategic planning updating process was the registration thing was a hindrance.
Oh, yeah.
But we also have thought about, we know that we're at a point where we need to do 2 story times. That's just one example, though. And I do think that the magical secret sauce eventually is going to be that data meets intangible but palpable performance, if that makes sense. So we've got to, I think, show the warm, fuzzy, just good for the community. This is in all of these things that the library does, but then also show real ROI, like with the workforce development. Hopefully we'll be able to say this many people came to the library and did this program and got jobs and are now working. That's what we do. Because I think there's going to be that part of the population that are going to want that. They're just going to want that data. And some of them are just, no matter what we do and no matter what we say, they're not going to like it. And others are going to be like, no matter what we do and what we say, they're going to say, libraries are awesome. Why wouldn't you want to support the library? So it's that middle that we really want to try and expand and get support from. And, it's ever present in my mind, but I know that we have to have a certain level of momentum, and we have to keep on building and building and building and keep just running the race to the best of our ability and hope that we can get there.
Well, and one really good thing that is happening at the library is you are having this many young children, toddlers, and infants come into the library. And, there was that gap for COVID, but as that population grows and the parents are engaged as well, that sort of, by the time the kids get to be in high school, it's like, oh, that was a really great program. We need enough space, and this community deserves to have high quality programming and space for kids so they can be successful in school.
Agreed. Yeah.
I'm just curious, we have I think the fair going on this weekend?
Mhm.
Did the library do any kind of tie-in with the fair? No?
No, because we didn't even know it was coming until it was here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's kind of just a carnival now.
Yeah, it's not like the state fair. We always know about that one, but this is like, I always, it's interesting because there are like, throughout the summer, there's a lot of carnivals.
Oh, so
But
this
then
isn't
the
the state
big
fair?
state one is in this, I think it's in the early fall.
We used to
I-
have
when I
the
was a
big
kid,
one
it was
up
in
in
the early-
Reno at Livestock,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like
Right, they
that,
moved it.
right? And this is not, there's like no livestock, there's no like pies and
Yeah,
stuff.
it's not
There's
like-
no, it's like a carnival.
But what's that? I mean, there's something at Fuji Park, and I know I've walked through the livestock area where the kids have.
But isn't this over here, right at?
Yes, right
That's
Yeah.
just the one over here. This over here is just a small little carnival.
Yeah.
But the actual state fair
Okay.
is there. Those are in the late summer, early fall.
Oh,
'Cause
okay,
that's when the
sorry. I thought
animals
I saw
are-
on Facebook, it was this weekend, and I thought,
I
how
think
weird
I
it
think
is.
it's called the Nevada State Fair. I mean, I think
but
they're
it's-
calling it that.
Yeah, I saw it on
Huh.
Facebook. So I was just curious, that's another innovation,
Yeah,
tying
no, a
into
partnership.
something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And we are trying always to seek out those partnerships and tie in with the community events.
Right.
And I think we're doing a good job. We can do a better job. And that also just relates back to being short-staffed and
Right.
and things like that. I do think we've done a really good job considering, and we've got a lot of people who are in new positions. They came from within, they were promoted, but they're still pretty new in their position. So that takes time, that professional development. But I do think that we are on just a very good trajectory.
I think so. So do we, as far as her evaluation, are we voting on that, or am I just going to just submit that to HR?
It'll be just submitted to HR.
Okay,
We have
the
to sign
evaluation
it.
is-
I'm sorry?
It has to be signed by
Is
my
there an official,
appraiser
is
and
there
my
an
employee.
official one?
Can you
Yeah, I
speak
think,
to this,
uh,
Jeff?
Yeah, Chairwoman signed it last year.
Jeff Coolum, Human Resources Director for Carson City. So I was looking at Joy's last evaluation, and it was signed by the board chair
Okay.
and Ms. Holt. And she does have the opportunity to make comments if she wishes.
So she has an opportunity to look at it like overnight or just today?
I think Mihaela, correct, I mean, in this body, does the board need to review any comments she makes on her evaluation?
I don't believe so. If I may have a moment, just to review the
Thank you.
statute.
Just want to
Well,
make sure we do this right.
If I could make it easier,
And
I'm good.
yes,
I don't
feel
I don't
like-
feel like I need to make any comments. I feel like I said all I needed to say in my self-appraisal.
So if I
and that's
sign
right
it
here.
tonight, then, and turn it into you, is that what we do?
Yes, and then we can get the process going on our end. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And this is based on a combination of the requirements of the statute and also Carson City policy. And I would advise to continue in the same process that was done last year. And the requirement for you to review the evaluation is just based on city policy and how you would be evaluated if you were a department head for Carson City. and not have your own reviewing board.
Yeah. I mean, this seems almost exactly like we did it last year, right? And so I feel comfortable with it. I typically make my comments in my sort of appraisal, so, yeah. And I mean, I asked my question, so it's on record, so we're good.
Okay,
Seem
thank
fair?
you. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, so then I think we can close that unless anybody has any other comments. Director Holt, okay, again, thank you, Director Holt, for the awesome job.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys, and I appreciate your support. I'm excited for the next year.
Did we make a motion, or do we need a motion to accept it? No? Is it possible action?
Yeah, that's, I had asked the same thing, so.
So if you'd like to make a motion, just to make sure that it's unanimous and it's a recommendation that you're all agree on.
Can I get a motion to approve Director Holt's 2024 evaluation?
As
Trust-
discussed on the record.
Trustee Olivas, I make a motion to approve the final and have Chairperson Nichols sign Director Holt's 2024 evaluation.
This is Trustee Markle. I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Better. Okay, moving on to item number 5, and this is information only, Library Director, your administrative report.
Does anybody have any questions about the budget information? The general fund or gift fund? The grant is still, it's a wash, so there's not a whole lot to report there. It was the state collection development grant, we spent it.
There's no surprises on here, correct?
No,
Okay.
no. I mean, you'll see that we've spent as of the, I didn't change the date on this one, but it was actually the 6th of June. We were at 73% of our budget spent. So as you guys know, I'm trying to keep it between 75 and 80. I think we're probably going to hit 80 this year because of just buying some things as we refurb the digitorium space and things like that. So, but still, with plenty of room, so we don't have to worry about busting our budget. Any questions about any of that?
Well, I love to see that you spent all the money allotted for books and periodicals.
Always. In fact, that's not even the true number. There's more coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are always going to be. I'm probably actually going to move some more money into that account for this coming fiscal year, so that we can, because we want to make sure we meet our 10% match. We want in order for us to receive LSTA funds, we need to show that we've spent 10% of our budget, our city budget, on books and periodicals. So we actually have a number internally that's greater than this number on here. But it's easy enough for me to just do a budget transfer since we're just about to start the new. I didn't do it last year. It doesn't really matter so long as we don't bust our bottom line, then we're good. They'll do all the
Transferring it from another.
Yeah, I'm probably going to transfer it. I'll probably do the budget transfer from contractual services because that bill did go down pretty substantially with cooperative getting a new ILS. So I'm not going to be asking for more money for books and periodicals. I'm going to take that money from a different budget or line item.
Okay.
Yeah. I try to be, as you guys know, pretty conservative about asking for supplemental money so that we have a greater, hopefully a greater odds. We have greater odds of getting those supplementals when we really, really need them. So.
And then, I'm trying to look, come on. Software maintenance costs?
Yeah, that's, I'll probably move some money into that too. Again, same thing. We're over budget on that line item, but we're not over budget overall. But that is our, the maintenance on all of our equipment. And a big part of it is the maintenance on our materials handler, which is the sorter, the robot that you push, the check-in sorter. When we first got that material with ARPA money, or that equipment with ARPA money, the first year we had half cost. Part of the sales and initial purchase price was half of the maintenance cost. And then with the understanding that going forward, it would be like 12 to 14. I know actually it's about $20,000 a year to maintain that machine. And so that's why we're going to see ourselves at that amount. Or I can budget transfer from another line item. It's kind of 6 of one to half a dozen of the other. The thing that I'm always looking at is the bottom line. Like if we're not going over budget with our overall budget, then it's as simple as a journal entry to do a budget transfer between line items, if that makes sense. So,
I wish it was that easy in the state.
no, I hear you. Yeah. Well, I went to a library directors summit that the state library put on, and we were talking about that. How it's really hard for folks to snap out of that, though, having us, because we have like a line item budget, but it's a sort of a zero-based budget hybrid, because we have our line item amount, but then anything beyond that, we're essentially starting at zero and have to ask for that additional amount and make the case. Whereas traditional zero-based, you have to make the case from the beginning, but the state is program-based, right? So it's tough. That's why there's a lot of waste, in my opinion, because at the end of the year, everybody's buying a whole lot of paper clips to make sure that they spend that budget and get it again the next biennium.
Well, it also keeps the allocation to the libraries in the state low,
Yeah,
which is a problem in this
Yeah.
state.
yeah, it is.
Agreed.
Yeah, the state is, I mean, it's sort of, I'm really grateful that I understand how the state works, though, because that makes me even more grateful for how much easier this is. I try not to lose sight of that simplicity. So any other questions about the gift fund or anything like that? Speaking of the gift fund, I'm kind of skipping ahead here, but the Friends did approve all of our funding proposals for fiscal year '25, and they'll be donating $55,000, which is 95% of their net proceeds, to fund community programming, summer reading, large print collection expansion, the purchase of both our leases, and digital collection expansion. It's pretty much what I've been asking for the last few years. It keeps it simple in terms of the budgeting and the accounting piece, but also those are just areas that we can always continue to use. They've historically always funded summer reading and other community programming and any sort of literacy related event. And so but the expansion of the large print and things like that's the last few years, and the digital collections. So, of course, they're always very generous, and I go and speak to them I go to all their general board meetings and give an update of where we're at with the spending, et cetera.
I have a question, this is Trustee Markle, about how would you manage without that full component from the Friends? If for some reason the Friends wanted to put aside $10,000 to $20,000 to for future library needs, like new furniture in 5 years or something, how would you be able to manage your program without that money? I mean, is that money critical to what you do?
Yes and no. I mean, it gives us a lot of flexibility, and we don't have to cut corners like we would have to. The interesting thing about the Friends is that their 501c3 status is premised on their making a donation of a certain, I mean, they basically have to donate most of that proceeds to us.
But if they donated to like we've kind of played around with a foundation. If they donated to a foundation.
Yeah,
in
that's a different
addition-
thing.
In
Yeah.
addition to the library, it would still fulfill that requirement.
That's true.
And so, but that would, it would be to a foundation that's building something for the future as opposed to, providing resources for the library immediately.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Also, I could just make a proposal for furniture. And they could give part of that net proceed to furniture.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm thinking more of a
Capital improvement.
Yeah, a building fund or
Yeah.
something like that.
Well, they actually have money that is a cap from the foundation that we had before that disbanded after the ballot measure wasn't passed, that they gave to the Friends, that the Friends, it's restricted funds. So the Friends have it and it gains interest, but it's for capital improvements only.
Okay.
So, and that's the purpose of a foundation. So, yeah, we certainly, without question, that would be a critical thing to have as we move forward with wanting to build a new library, to be able to say we have this much money from other sources. So, yeah, I mean, we would make it work.
Is your question kind of like, if you didn't give $55,000, how would we buy those books and leases and whatnot?
Yeah, in some ways. I mean, if you didn't get $55,000, how could you have summer reading? I mean, I know there's.
Other buckets, I guess.
Well, we did it in 2021.
There's flexibility here, so I understand it would work. I just wanted to know, how reliant are you on always having that money?
Well, it's obviously it's essential, but I also always I purposely ask for things that if we weren't able to get the funding that we normally get, we would still be, I try not to make plans reliant upon that. We'd still have a summer reading program. We would just have to cut back on our operating supplies or, there's lots of areas where we could get very frugal if we needed to. And I'm already trying to be very frugal. I mean, we just started this program called the Popsicle Extravaganza that myself and a few other staff members, we follow one of the same Facebook forums. And it's like, come and make this, color on these popsicles and then make a frame, or we'll make a big frame from all of your contributions at the end of the summer, because we have popsicle sticks, like bins and bins of them. I don't know why, but anyone who's been in a public library will tell you there's always programming. The programming department always has at least one or two items that they just have a ton of. My last library, it was Tool. And so there was bins and bins of Tool. And so now I'm like, we got to get rid of these popsicle sticks. So we have got to find every program we can find that would use these popsicle sticks, because we don't have the room, and because for whatever reason, I don't know if we bought like 3 cases of them and they were hidden away somewhere. We didn't know we had them, because it's crazy. And we have a lot of crayons.
Oh, yeah.
So those are used though. But now we don't have to keep the little stubby ones, that we would normally go, no, that's still got some crayon on it, keep that. We're like, no, toss it. So we would just get more frugal. And at the end of the day, ultimately ask for more money from the city if we had to. Mm-hmm. We've got a pretty sizable gift fund though.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I think that's it for the budget.
Okay, so on to my report, staffing updates. So our senior library assistant, Haley Wilson, who is starting a master's in library science program at the University of Indiana at the end of the summer, has been promoted to our collection development supervisor, replacing Rachel March. And she's incredible. She already has a master's in classical studies or something along those lines. She speaks Greek and Hebrew, and is just an all-around interesting person and very dialed in on what's going on with. She's a prolific reader, but is not just a literary fiction reader. She's, she's reading the pop stuff too. So she's going to be great. She's already totally on top of it. And she was who was backing up Rachel and also took over a good bit of Rachel's workload when Rachel left whilst we were looking for someone new. So it's a natural fit. So the senior workforce development professional position that's associated with the GoEd workforce development funding is expected to be filled by early July. We went in front of the Board of Examiners on Tuesday, and that final hurdle is over the finish line. They approved, they signed it, and so we're waiting for the funding. And then we'll be off to the races with the rest of that to get that going. Library assistant interviews are still pending. This has been a really rough go with the library assistant, just because people just haven't met the qualifications. And then with the senior library assistant, so one of our recent staff members we filled that position with is no longer with us. So with the library, so now we've got 3 senior library assistant positions open, which is rough. And good news is we've got a senior, one of them is posted. So the other 2 are going to get posted. And we're going to do our best to just try and whittle down and get as many qualified candidates as we can. One of the issues that we're running into is that if they do meet minimum qualifications is we can't meet their salary requirements. And it's not because the salary isn't good. It's because the salary expectations are, I dare say, I wonder sometimes if folks saw the range. Because it's like, this is, so they have maybe not the greatest qualifications, but then they want a salary that's, frankly, not even aligned with what the salary range is for the position. That's very well posted. And, that information is out there. It's not mysterious in any way. So it's not that we're not paying well. It's that I'm not really sure what's driving.
Are they
the
full-time
expectation.
positions?
Yeah. But for example, we had someone here recently who had no library experience, but had enough relevant experience. This is just really fresh in my mind because I read it yesterday. Had enough relevant experience that they were able to make it through the minimum qualifications standards for HR, which I have to say Shane does a great job of weeding those out for me. I'd rather that we, just not even bother if they don't meet the minimum qualifications. But then the person wanted like top of the range to start. So it was this sort of in my opinion, unrealistic expectation. No library experience, but wants to be hired at the top of the salary range, which isn't going to happen because our existing staff members with years of experience aren't at the top of the salary range. And what people don't understand also is that they don't necessarily want us to fight for that because then they're going to tap the ceiling. And so it's just this weird, I don't think there's anything we can necessarily do to fix that. We just have to, I think the one thing that we can do to help ourselves, and we will be doing, this is the first time Jeff is hearing this, but Shane's heard a little bit of it, is ask some really specific questions, especially for the senior library assistant positions, supplemental questions that they will get when they apply, that will to be more pointed. Like, because the job description is vaguely written for a reason, but then we want to be able to ask some more specific questions. Can you explain, for example, why do you want to work at the Carson City Public Library? And if the answer is, I love books, then we want, and if so, and can you elaborate on that? Because a lot of times folks will say they just love books and they want to be in a library and they want to be around the books, but they don't necessarily understand that there's a lot more to it than that. Like, first of all, we don't sit around and read books all day, but also it's a public library. There's a lot that goes along with that. And so I think we just have to be more, ask some really pointed questions in that early process that to convey to people what it's actually going to be including so that they can go, hopefully logically, oh, they're asking me a question about this you know, maybe you need to think about that. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
What age range of people do you get?
All over the place.
It makes sense to me because we do the same thing with the state. So you can read a generalized, you need to have 3 years accounting experience or whatever. But then in order to get through the whole process, it'll say additional questions. And there's some, explain your programming experience, or explain what level of Excel and or what kind of budgets you've managed. I mean, so you can, yes, look at a general thing, go, oh, that might be kind of fun to work for, state forestry or something. But then you get down to those other questions and you go, oh, or what is your management style or something?
Right.
Oh, shoot, I got to manage people. Okay, never
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
It does help. I think these additional questions do make people kind of stop, or they might think, oh, this is great because they're asking me about something that yes, I've done, and and somebody can
Yeah.
write a really long paragraph about what they've done, and
Yeah.
it helps grab that person.
Yeah, because I mean, yes, that's absolutely what I'm getting at. So it's good to hear that that actually works, and I also know that it works just from my own experience interviewing for jobs. But some of the things that I've been seeing a lot of lately is, what's the objective? Like, what are your career objectives? And people say, well, I really just want a job that that sounds fun, and I just love libraries. I mean, we get that answer a lot, and it's like, ooh, oh, yeah, me too. I love libraries too, but it's so much more than that, And so I think we have to find a way to let people know, and also in the interview, I'm trying to think of ways, and I'll take any suggestions. I'm trying to think of ways to communicate to people the volume and the pace, because I can tell people all day long how many books we circulate in a day, in a month, on average, but to then be there and having those books come in and having those bins overflowing and having people lined up and having people, complaining about, the shenanigans that are happening, just that very real public interface can be, it's a hard thing to convey in theory, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. I mean, I've worked retail and I've also worked in a hotel. And, the hotel front desk. And so when you are hiring someone, you do have to make sure they're a people person. And maybe that's how I would convey that to them too when you're in the interview, to say, yeah, we all love books, but that's not what we're doing. It's almost retail. I mean, you're going to be on your feet, you're going to be helping people, and you're going to have more books in your hand than you can handle because you're just going to be shelving and
Yeah.
shelving.
One of the questions that we just recently, in this last round of interviews for library assistants, that we added was, I can't remember the exact wording, but basically, can you tell us a time when you were dealing with a customer who was speaking to you in a very derogatory and inappropriate, using inappropriate language, and possibly acting aggressively, in a nice way of asking, have you ever had to deal with someone having a complete mental breakdown? And how did you do that? Because it happens a lot. And so, and they could come in and how do you address or deal with folks who one day are awful, and then the next day they come in and they're fine because they were probably altered the day before and don't even remember when they come in and they're fine. And how do you deal with that roller coaster? Because it can be a real roller coaster. You have to have a bit of a, you have to have an ability to just kind of like let that roll off of you. I mean, someone who's worked retail at the holidays would be well versed. Because people can't, I'm convinced that people aren't any uglier than they are in a retail clothing store at Christmas time.
I would also ask, how many other city departments are faced with that kind of behavior on a regular basis? I mean,
Not many.
I think that's a very that's very challenging for people. And I think it takes, I mean, I'm not sure I could even deal with that. And I do have some experience, but I have not dealt with anyone who's had a mental breakdown, and I don't really want to. But that doesn't mean I can't be a good library assistant or worker or librarian. And so it kind of brings me back to, is this a library issue? This is why it's a city thing. The city should not be pushing all of this kind of work onto the library. And I mean, I'm sure people in the Parks and Rec get bad-mouthed periodically, or maybe at the pool. But yeah, it's sort of unique within the departments in the city, and it's difficult to, I would kind of try and push that towards the city a little bit more too. Is that an easy thing to do? I don't know.
No.
No.
I mean, I think the city is very aware, and I think that they're working on doing the best that they can do. But the reality is we are where we are right now.
Yeah.
And so, and the dealing with the public and people suffering from mental illness, drug addiction, alcohol abuse, trauma, that's always going to we're always going to have that population, right? And so we have to be prepared for that. And so I have to be very mindful of that. And I just want to be very clear with people and not overwhelm them, but also be very real with them of what their expectations are, because I don't think anybody wants to necessarily deal with people who are having a mental breakdown. But the reality is that we do. We do deal with that. And we might not want to, and we maybe shouldn't have to, but the reality is that we do. And so I have to be clear. My perspective is I have to be clear with people about that to some extent, because otherwise they're not going to be happy. If they're just very adamantly opposed to or not able to sort of adjust to that on some level, then this is not probably a good fit for them, at least right now.
I don't know if it's our place to even say anything. I'm just going to take my trustee hat off for a second and say, you make a really good point. As a citizen, I would like it brought to like the Board of Supervisors and legislatures attention, because it's not just Carson City Library, that maybe librarians need to make more money overall over other people who work for the city, because other people who work for the city, like you're right, they don't have people walking into their offices drunk and sitting down and, and doing what they do. A lot of the city offices, even when they're dealing with the public, they've got their panic buttons, they've got sometimes glass, they just don't have to deal with that. And I just think that might be something that should be brought to their attention. That these people do things that we think, oh, they're librarians, they're shelving books and helping people pick out a read, but they're doing a lot more than that. They're almost like social workers on top of being a library.
There's a certain element to it for sure. And it's really much more, and that's why I always emphasized public library, because not all public libraries are the same. I just know what we're dealing with. I know what other libraries are dealing with across the country. And it's just it goes with the territory to some extent. Can it be mitigated? No doubt. But it is something that we also have to, be very mindful of and find a way to also accurately convey to people that, if the expectation is that it's super quiet and we sit in a room and we do, cataloging, we do that. I don't, but our cataloger does. But she also has to be on a service desk. And it's a much more all hands to the pump type job. And especially at the Carson City Library, we are not siloed. We have a flattened hierarchy. So that means everybody's doing a little bit of everything. Now, I think that's a big part of why we're successful, because we have a staff of people that want to do a little bit of everything. And so that's, I guess, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to get down to is helping people understand when they enter or when they apply, that they're going to have the opportunity to do a little bit of everything. But it's up to them as to whether or not they see that as an opportunity or a burden.
Well, and also I think, a- I don't really want to say a larger library, but a more robustly staffed library. Not everyone has that opportunity to, react to the person who's having the mental breakdown on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. So you don't have, it's a exception instead of a everyday occurrence.
Yeah.
Or a regular occurrence. So, if you only have 3 people who, are really good at diffusing situations, as opposed to having, 10, it makes a difference in the quality of work you can accomplish. If you're interrupted with that kind of behavior on a regular basis, you can't your work, you can't do the same kind of work. You can't always accomplish what you want to accomplish. But
Yeah. I mean, that's true. I think a lot of it, as far as people's comfort level with handling this, it rests on my shoulders too, by leading by
yeah.
example. I recently told a staff member, a man was very rude to me, and I said, well, he goes, I've never seen anyone be that rude to you. And I said, well, I'm not going to go home and cry because someone who's drunk at the library called me fat. Not going to lose any sleep over that. You're drunk at the library. I mean, I was like, I try not to lose my sense of humor about it. It's because it's like, and I could see that was the right way to deal with him, if I do say so myself, because it was like, oh yeah, this man is completely inebriated. He doesn't know what he's saying. It's, but that can be hard when you're first out in the workforce and you've got people saying ugly things to you. But it does get easier. And I think it helps to keep humor, infuse it with humor. But also, I think our staff knows that, I think most of them, and then they did say that actually in my 360-degree evaluation, that they know that I will support them. That I'm not, they know they can come and get me and I will intervene. And that should be me. That's my role, part of my role. I should be able to intervene. And I hope that gives them a certain level of confidence to deal with this stuff too. But I can't, I just want to end with saying we deal with people who are having horrible days, but we are also dealing with people who are incredibly lovely and grateful and say wonderful things to us. So there's a balance. I always say that to the staff when someone's been particularly ugly is that the universe will always bring someone else up to negate that by being incredibly wonderful and gracious and kind. So it might not happen the same day, but usually the same week.
I guess I would just have to say that I think all of us feel bad that you have to deal with that on a regular basis. I mean, not just you, but your whole staff have to deal with it on a regular basis. I mean, that's sort of where I am. You shouldn't have to be dealing with that all the time.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough all the way. It's rough for everyone involved. It's
Oh,
rough for
it
the people
is.
that are
It
mentally ill.
is.
It's rough for the people that don't have a shelter. The whole thing is just, it's a very complicated situation. So,
Unfortunately, yeah, it is beyond a library issue.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, so on to fun things. The Summer Reading Challenge Travel Through Time kickoff party was on Saturday, and it was super fun. We had a pancake breakfast that the Kiwanis put on for us, and then we were blasted for the first hour and a half. And I think people had a lot of fun. And so we had quite a few signups, I think, 200 plus or something that day. And, we'll keep on keeping on. It's a little bit longer than it was last year. So hopefully we'll meet our goal of 800,000 minutes read. And the staff has decided that we're going to have an internal competition to see who reads the most books. I already know I'm not going to win, but I'm in it. Today
Can
we
you
had.
still sign up?
Oh yeah, I've signed up, and you can sign up until the day before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so So I'm signed up, but I mean, our collection development supervisor, Haley Wilson, is, I mean, she reads like 15 books at least a month. I'm like, I read maybe 2, 3. The podcasts have steered me away from reading, the traditional reading. So we also had a tie-dye program today. It was supposed to last from 2 to 5. It lasted from 2 to 3 because we had 67 people in the first 45 minutes and ran out of dye. So awesome turnout, and we are going to do it again, probably twice. They came in tie-dyed handkerchiefs, and then they're big, so then they're more like napkins, and then they put a little thing in the middle and made butterflies out of them. But it's pretty incredible. If you go on our social, you'll see what some of the incredible tie-dyeing skill that people had. And then also we're going to be having a movie through the decades program every Saturday. The first one is The Pride of the Yankees. I'm just highlighting here. And then we do have a book talk on Saturday, the 22nd at 10:30 with an author named Moment Bebau Reinhardt, who wrote Virginia City versus Bonanza, and how those two sort of came together. So I read some reviews on it and just like a quick Kirkus review, and it sounds really interesting. So budget augmentations were submitted. The Friends, I already covered that part. I did attend the Nevada Library Director Summit. That was really great. Got to see a lot of folks and make some connections and just see people that I already knew who I haven't seen in years. And we had an opportunity to sort of talk about strategic planning and, HR stuff. So it was good. It's good to have that professional connection. And then I was going to attend the ALA Association's annual conference at the end of June, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think I'm going to have to attend virtually because of just the timing with us being so short-staffed. So,
I just had one question. When I was at Browser's Corner the other day, a young man came in with his phone and he wanted to know if we had a charging cable that he could borrow or that he could charge his phone. And I asked if we didn't have any. I asked if he checked at the library and he said he checked and there was nothing available. Do you ever have like a charging cable that someone could borrow for a short time? I mean, check out. Is that
so we
something-
haven't bought them because they'll walk out the door.
What
But
about
what
those
we're actively looking into our new circulation supervisor, Amanda Conklin, is looking for charging stations. But in terms of the actual cord themselves, if people leave them behind, then we will
Then
let
have
people
some,
borrow them.
yeah.
Yeah. And the reason we let them borrow them is like, why not? Because otherwise we would just take them to the Goodwill. But also it's no loss to us financially if it walks out the door. But to purchase them, they would almost inevitably be gone. We wouldn't be able to keep up with it. So we do let them use them though. And we've got quite a collection now. And I will also let them use like if we've got an extra Mac laptop charger laying around. But we had one for a while, and I think it did actually walk out the door. So, but yeah, we are looking into charging stations, which would also help with the outlet. One thing we have had to do just recently is cover the outlets because we've had so many people just blocking the aisles. And
like the airport?
I mean, we actually have so they're baby plugs, right? We actually had someone the other day who there's a sign right above it that says, "This is not a phone charging station." And because people were also plugging their phones in at the catalog stations. And so this person was like, "Oh, I can't charge my phone here, but I can charge my computer," and took the baby thing out and was like, naturally. And so now we're changing the signs to say, not a charging station. But people, yeah, they will, it's pretty, they will do that. So now we just, and it's not as if it's a bit it's a bit of a rub for me that we have to deny, it's a barrier to access that we have to plug those outlets, but we have to because We just don't have the room for people to stand in the aisles or sit in the aisles or have their phone stretched across the aisle to charge their phone. Plus, we do have charging stations upstairs, so, but they're not enough, which is why we're looking for different options. So that's the end of my journey tonight. Any questions for any of y'all? Everybody's going to be doing summer reading, right? Johnny, the kiddos? You know that audiobook listening counts. Just saying.
But not podcasting.
No, because they're not reading a book. I mean,
I can turn you on to a really good podcast that talks about books.
ooh, okay. Talk off record. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll count because it'll go through the book.
Two of my favorite things meet.
Okay, so we're on to item number 6, information only, board members' announcements and requests for information. Does anybody have an announcement, or does anybody have a request? Anything, is there anything you want to see on the next agenda?
Is this sufficient for giving notice that I won't be here next time?
I think so.
And hopefully then we have our new member by then?
I'll reach out, make sure she knows.
Okay, because if she doesn't, then maybe we can reschedule or something, because then we wouldn't have a quorum.
Right.
She probably can. She's, she doesn't flit around.
So I'm not sure if this will be ready for the next agenda, but I do have a request. And this kind of goes along the lines of what we've been talking about, but a year ago, 2 years ago now, I don't know. Time goes by really fast. We used to have some lovely staff members who would come to the meeting, and I'm not requesting they come to the meeting, okay? But we had some lovely staff members who'd come to the meeting and give us stats. And it kind of goes along the data that you're talking about, to collect data. We were told, for instance, how many people visited the library in a month. I think how many books were checked out. A little bit more information. I guess I would like to see more data, more stats in the reports, if that's possible.
Sure.
To talk about how many kids came to story hour, how many story hour, we had.
Oh, I could give you that off the top of my head anytime you want to know, honestly.
Yeah.
Because I've got it in my mind all the time of how much, what our statistics are.
Okay.
Um,
But I would like to see that part of the report. And I think that would help, like I said, as we talked about, data and having people understand how
So do you want
important
like
the
a
library is.
graph? Because part of the reason we stopped doing that, 2 reasons. One, board members felt like it made the meetings really long. And we're not fans of it at that time.
Correct.
Also, we had very siloed departments. We had an access services manager, creative learning department. They came and spoke for their different departments. And we don't have that anymore.
And that's fine. I'm not asking them to take.
Yeah.
Because I know that could be tough. I mean, if it was their day off or those aren't the hours they were working, I don't expect someone to come
Yeah.
in. But so, yes, make it easy, an Excel graph or,
Okay.
something,
Do
something
you want to
like-
see it every time or every quarter? I mean, the quarter would be more razzly-dazzly numbers, but
Yeah. Well, why don't we start with every time, and then if it gets too redundant, then maybe we can go to quarters.
I think you make a good point in that if it's like read into the record, so to speak, it gives people who might be interested an opportunity to look back and, maybe in 3 years after they've seen it you've seen stats increase over 3 years, somebody might say, oh, maybe they need a new library.
Correct.
Correct. Just
it can't hurt.
right. As long as it's not, too much of a burden to prepare that kind of.
No, I don't
Work.
think so.
Okay.
I'll just experiment with it. And if I do what I come up with isn't exactly what you had in mind, then, we'll start the journey with one step and see how it goes. I mean, I can always do it in whatever format everyone wants to see, But yeah, part of the reason why, I mean, I can definitely make it condensed so that we don't we're not facing, because it was a 2 to 2.5 hour meeting every time with all those folks speaking.
Right, yeah, it doesn't have to be a report, just, like I said.
Straight numbers.
Straight numbers, yeah.
Okay.
I don't need someone to come in and tell, walk me through how many people came in
Okay.
that month, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, on Wednesday, it was really slow, but Thursday,
Right, yeah.
We don't
Oh,
need
got it.
that. We just,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
easy enough.
okay, that would be great. I think that would be very helpful to everybody. Anything else? No? Okay. I have too many agendas in my hand. I'm sorry. Okay. So then, item number 7, public comments. Members of the public who wish to address the Library Board of Trustees may come forward and speak on any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Library Board. And there's no one on the phone, right? Okay. And then item number 8 for possible action, I guess we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. Good job. No, thanks.